Hello, I'm Mike Harber, your host, and you're listening, watching Crash Talk. I know it's been a while, and it's just been so busy. It's been hard to take the time to do these, but I was specifically asked by one of our very good clients that she would really appreciate the opportunity to be able to tell about what we've done for her. And so, but let me give it a disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. None of our staff have any legal training. If you need legal advice, you need to seek that from a practicing attorney. And if you need a referral to an attorney, we have quite a few that we work with. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite Mandi, a 3-time client of ours that we've worked with now for several years. And you're going to see that she is a fighter and is like a dog with a bone. She just does not give up. Anyway, so with that, let me introduce Mandi, and we will get right into it.
Yeah, we were talking about pre Harber appraisals.
Oh,
How I'd fended for myself, trying to scrape up those dollars, and and I look back on the very first accident that I had. Thankfully, there was only one that I missed out on without your guys' expertise to help me with. But I have often thought about that through these rhythms.
well, we've done 3 claims for you, and I'm sure that's you're not you're probably not excited to contact us again, but it's something how many people that we've worked with over the years that end up being repeat customers of ours, to where they come back and they know that we're here to help. And even if it's just giving you some free advice and pointing you in the right direction, we do that every day for people. And
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm absolutely a recipient of that too. You guys have definitely helped me in that arena to self-serve. I am the individual that'll self-serve opposed to reaching out if at all possible. But yeah, I mean, not ideal that I've had to use your guys' services, but the alternative is I would have still been in the predicament I was without your services. So I'd much rather have you guys available to help combat that and make sure that I'm being treated fairly than to not, right?
well, I've referred to the insurance industry, and this is kind of I guess, try to keep a little bit of humor in this, but the playground bully. And you certainly put the playground bully in their place. Let's kind of break some of these claims down, because I want our listeners to be able to hear how you fought it, and just the fact that you were very successful. Um, when we first met, you were referred to us by someone.
Yeah. So Audi had a trusted body shop that they utilized. And of course, the Audi was my dream car. I think you already know this. For anybody watching, my dream car was the recipient of a nice door ding from a newer driver. Fine, it happens. There's some significant damage just from a door ding. And so I went to Audi and asked them for their trusted shop. And they sent me over to Paramount. Paramount did fantastic work. And they said, hey, yeah, they said, "Hey, you've got to make sure that you're being treated fairly." And not knowing what I didn't know, I was like, "Oh, of course, I'll do my due diligence and give Harber Appraisal a call," but I don't really know what that means. And I'm glad that I did, because that one ended up, the first of the three, interactions that I've had with you. That one I think was the more interesting of the three because of the nature of it, with the loss of use and the diminished value. It was a little bit stickier and less straightforward. So I think that's kind of what brought us down the path of, having to, go to small claims court and, present case law and precedences and all of that stuff. That you wouldn't think would be on your side, right? Up against the big playground bully. I felt like I was hopeless in the numerous amount of insurance OIC claims we had to do because we weren't being treated fairly by the insurance company. And I don't know if this is a forum to be laying out names or anything.
No, as long as it's truthful information. I mean, even the name of the insurance companies. And I'm glad you brought up the shop. And that Paramount is one of the very few shops anymore that really work for consumers. They're not tied in. They don't have a contract with the insurance companies. and
Yeah.
we just see some terrible stuff coming out of these shops that are contracted with the insurance company. And so, oh, I got a call coming in. I thought I had all of this stuff taken care of, so it wouldn't. Um, so, so that first claim was diminished value and a loss of use. Now, I'm going to say right now, I've never known anyone that's gone to small claims court on their own without having the expert there, the author of the report, and prevail. And you did. And so tell us a little bit about that. I mean, just what you had to go, well, maybe even leading up to it. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say back the bus up because this shouldn't have been as difficult as it was. The insurance company was doing everything to dodge us, me, you, and draw this thing out, right? I didn't get a court hearing or get to be heard or seen by the judge for 18 months post accident. And that is directly related to the insurance company, in my opinion, skirting their responsibilities. There's this poor young kid who's 18 years old, and he's not being fairly represented by the company that he's hired, right? Like he pays them a premium every month, and they've got him thinking, oh, well, we're going to stick it to this, Mandi girl, right? And her appraiser. And I said fine. Then that's, after our multiple OIC claims, and trying to hold them accountable, we took the route of going to small claims, which then eliminates the insurance company, right? They're not a party to the case. And that really worked in our advantage because unfortunately it was me, a pretty, well-spoken professional individual that has some seasonality, some seasoning behind me in terms of, growth and maturity. And then you have an 18-year-old kid. I knew it was going to be a slam dunk. I just had this feeling that it was going to be a slam dunk. But I was armed with a very professional format that you provided, up against the one that the insurance company provided that needed to be brought forward by the 18-year-old that had holes and gaps because they didn't understand the judicial process that professional witnesses are not allowed in the courtroom. Specifically in this case, being that it was small claims, it wasn't being seen in superior court. And so armed with all of the case law and precedences that you armed me with and your very professional, clearly outlined declaration, it was able to stand on its own in court versus on the opposition side. It was theirs was not in the form of a declaration. It was meant to be accompanied by the professional, which wasn't allowed. And the judge ultimately allowed and asked me whether or not I would allow that to happen in court, knowing that it's not standard practice. So
well, I wasn't aware of it. Now, see, small claims court attorneys aren't allowed, but you can have a witness. You can have an expert.
That's not what the judge said in this instance. He said that was not the forum. Granted, it was a pro tem judge, so maybe he wasn't familiar with it, but he left his chambers for about 30 minutes to get clarification and came back and said that if I wanted to move it to superior court for a more formal civil hearing, we could do that and then it would be allowed. And I told him I was not in favor of that, having had to wait, 6 months for a hearing to begin with, 18 months post accident. And so the compromise I made, I said, please allow the appraiser to come forward, say his bit, and then step back into the galley since mine isn't able. So we spun that in our favor that, not having you there and having the declaration, but I'd already jotted down all the notes and holes that I'd gleaned from his appraisal compared to your appraisal. Right. There key information that was missing. They appraised it 8 months after the accident versus yours was within, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks max. And that really had to do with a couple of things, right? But yours was closer to the actual incident than his. So there are a number of factors that played into it, but I knew all of those gaps. And the moment he didn't cover it and I asked him to step back, and that was what the judge allowed, I just blew holes in it and his appraisal got thrown out. It was suppressed. It was no longer allowed to be used in the case.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and I went back and I reviewed your claim before our meeting, and you got the full amount that we evaluated at. But there was also another, you get your filing fees and you get your process service fees as long as you get an award in the court. But then there was another one in there that said other for I think it was $750. What was that? You got extra money.
I thought the $750 was for your fee.
Oh,
Yeah, so I received it was not only the process server fees, the court filing fees, all of that. I was reimbursed the fees that I incurred for hiring your services. So ultimately, I got your services for free on top of the advice that I received from you to help me get the rest of the money. Because through your services, if you remember, were getting the insurance company to bend, but not fully. They were still going against Washington state case law and precedences and not allowing for the loss of use and trying to define it on their own terms. I went to court to meet the gap that they weren't adhering to your expertise and the law, right? And so that's what we went to court for, was for the rest. I believe you were able to get them somewhat on the diminished value and partway on the loss of use, but it wasn't satisfactory, which is why we went to court. So still seeing the services, even if you don't want to go to court, that your services were able to, provide above and beyond, but that wasn't good enough for, me. So that was the let's go to court and let's take what we know we deserve. Granted, there was no promise. Any judge could have seen it anyway, right? But I can't even remember. You'd have to tell me like the different case law that you helped me present, but the judge couldn't ignore those facts.
sure.
That had been done this way before in Washington state, that it was only fair to do it again. So that's what happened. And then the happy side of the story that the 18-year-old didn't see was that didn't come out of his pocket. The moment I got that judgment, I received an email from the insurance company's attorney asking me for my mailing address so they can cut the check right away, because they are on the hook for their client. And people don't understand that. Oh, collections is going to be another thing. No, no, no. It's an insurance company. They have to make their client whole. Their client was sued due to lack of coverage or lack of their covering. And so they have to make them whole. So the happy ending is the 18-year-old, he got a little bit more of a life lesson than I think he was in for, but a lesson in, don't go with the cut rate insurance, right? And the second thing is you will be covered because the state will be on your side, even on the flip side of that is being, the cause of the accident.
Now, in this same claim, so your vehicle was damaged, you took it to a good shop, you had it repaired, you were satisfied with the repair, and so you had a diminished value claim that you ended up taking the small claims court, and you won. You
Yep.
won big. You won big. I mean,
Yep.
you got the whole enchilada. You also had a claim on this same claim. There's different elements, like the insurance company paid on behalf of the 18-year-old, right? They paid for
Yep.
the damage of your car. Then they paid through this judgment for your diminished value. But you also had a loss of use claim.
Yeah, the loss of use was quite the interesting one. Again, that was something I would have not known anything about, pre Harber appraisals, right? Like those are things that you should be awarded for, whether that be in terms of the rental car, which I chose not to get. Remember, I had a second vehicle, so I didn't incur any costs with the rental car. Not to mention, their insurance company was denying me the rental car anyways. If you remember that was a huge one that you were going, hand to hand combat on that situation with the insurance company to say, hey, regardless of whether or not Mandy's taking advantage of, she's still due compensation for the lack of use. Here's my beautiful dream car that also, by the way, the loss of use shouldn't have gone for, I think it was 39 days. The total estimated duration of the repair was 10 days by Paramount, and Paramount could not get the insurance company to release the supplemental agreements and approve them. And so, if you remember, they held up the entire process of getting parts ordered, and it was on them. We were able to prove that out by working with Paramount and getting date and time stamps on all of that stuff to show, no, you do owe for the 39 days. The other part of that was the value of each day. They wanted to give us, again, you probably don't remember this, but rental car rates were the cheapest for a subcompact was $90 a day. They were only allowing $34 when they finally wanted to make a concession with you. They were only going to allow $34. And you're like, hey, that doesn't even get her in a car, let alone a sports luxury vehicle like the one that she's been put out of. And then that was the huge basis that and the crutch of what pushed us into the court case, because this they've got you have a fancy quote. What's the fancy quote? They're responsible for I
I
can't remember what it was. It's, to put you into a comparable, vehicle, right? That serves the same, means of transportation. So, for them to
you're supposed to have a comparable, something that's equivalent to what you had, comparable,
yeah.
not. And sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we only owe you for basic transportation," or, I mean, some of the things that they say are the state laws are just totally they make it up as they go along. S-
And so many people don't know any better, and they go, "Okay, I guess if that's what you say." And I guess
Exactly.
that's where I'm an advocate for your services because I see it happen all the time, and I want people to understand you have more rights, and that doesn't mean more work. You've got an expert here that's gonna fight on your side. He's gonna put in all the elbow grease. You might be asked a question here or there, but you by no means have to go look up the case law, look up the laws, muster up the emotional strength to go after this. All you have to do is hire Mike. Mike takes care of it. And
Well,
that's truly how I feel. That's honestly how I feel because I'm busy, just like everybody else. Like I have my personal life, my work life, my career ambitions and goals. This was like, oh gosh, one more thing I've got to tackle. And inside this one thing, this one checkbox are sub items.
oh yeah.
That's where it hits you. And it's tedious and you don't want to literally don't want to come out from underneath the rock to look at the situation.
Well, and it's something because the insurance companies, they rely on that people don't know. It's so confusing. It's so and it eats up your time. And how do you fit something like this when all of us have just our schedules are packed full? I mean, kids, sports, different
Yeah.
hobbies or whatever, and your work, and then all of a sudden you get this thrown in the middle of things, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And so that's why. And I want to say you continually refer to me, and I appreciate that, and that means a lot to me. That's why I continue to do this. But we've got a staff now, there's 5 of us, and
Mhm.
every single person, um, they're working in the evenings, they're working on the weekends. I mean, everybody's pulling in the same direction, and so we've got just a great group of people to help. Um, yeah. So
Absolutely. And I've had the pleasure with working with at least 2 of them face to face. I understand there's probably a lot that happens behind the scenes, but that's important to note too that there's many points of contacts within your organization and all are very well versed in this. I mean, this is what you guys do every day. So I do absolutely appreciate all the support from your team members.
yeah,
It did,
yeah,
it really felt like I had a team that I was going into this with. This wasn't David versus Goliath, this isn't the small guy getting beat up by the big guy, right? I felt like I had a team and like, we had a strategy the entire time. So I had faith in the process.
yeah. Wow. Well, you've said it so well. And like I said, it means a lot to me, and it is a David and Goliath battle. I mean, the insurance companies, unfortunately, they most of them don't care. They just don't care. And they've probably got 100 claims on their desk, and they're just trying to get through them as fast as they can. And they're hoping if they put you off long enough, you'll just give up.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well,
But the reality is too on that front is it's not costing you any money to go through this motion, right? Like this none of these had, I got lucky that I got the fees recovered, but even still in that instance, if I didn't get the fees recovered, the amount of money you guys were able to recover for me far outweighed whatever fees I paid. So the way that you can look at it is this isn't any incremental cost to do this. If there's incremental win to be had, right? You're just getting back your fair share.
right.
And I don't know all the services that you provide and whether or not that rings true, but it does ring true. It wasn't like, oh, I can't go through these rhythms because I need my money now. Well, there was no money now without your services. So it's important to point that out too. And I was able to use it for very productive things. I put money back into my vehicles. They were significant chunks too. They helped me, pay down a credit card bill. Well, as insignificant as that is, it's nice to have that, right? Those are nice things I was able to, it paid off. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think I said in the beginning, and you are the only, and I couldn't even tell you how many thousands of people that we've done these types of things for, but you are the only one that I'm aware of that went to small claims court without having me tag along, and then you came away a winner. I mean, it just
Well,
usually doesn't happen.
and I appreciate that. I do have the chops for it. I've got a little bit of the sales blessing, right? But I do have to say, the things that I think it would be important to point out here was you called me right before and coached me. You got me revved up and ready with all the points the week before. I spent time with that case law. Now that's, extra credit, right? I went the extra mile for that one. But I also want to point out that was only just so I could get that little bit of extra, right? I was already promised more from my insurance company by utilizing you. This was just the home stretch. But the coaching really, really helped. I am a bit of a hobbyist attorney. In fact, I think the judge asked me if I was an attorney, and I said, no, I'm not. He's like, well, you sound like it. And it made that kid feel a little bit better too, that at least he wasn't completely, crushed by an amateur or anything.
Yeah. Well, and you did bring up another point, and because most people think you're taking the 18-year-old boy to court, or you're taking somebody's grandma to court, and you
Yeah.
think well, I don't really want to sue them, and she was such a nice lady, and yet unfortunately, it isn't until it even says in the policy, it says that we, meaning the insurance company, do not have to pay until a judgment is entered in against you.
Yeah.
But at our discretion, we may negotiate and settle the claim. So they pretty much have all the cards. They can decide if they
Yeah.
want to pay a claim or if they're just going to put you off. But once there's a judgment, then they have to pay.
And it was, and this is the major win for me, Mike. This was really hitting the insurance company where it hurt. You know what they got to do? They sent their goons, whatever. They had to sit in the galley with everybody else. They weren't allowed to say or do anything in court. And they sat there and watched front row view of, this judgment just completely going the opposite direction that they wanted it to go. I don't believe that they did anything to arm that poor boy with any support, not in the fashion that I had it. I had stacks of papers. I had one for the judge and one for the other side, and I had them all organized. I had my declarations and my appraisals, and the kid just showed up. like, and unfortunately, like I said, part of that lesson is don't get cut rate insurance.
Yeah,
That's going to be his first takeaway. Like he does have responsibility for this. Yeah, accidents happen, but make sure you're covered and when we talk about when insurance companies aren't paying their fair share, we're not just talking about cut rate. These big guys aren't doing it either. What do you think the cut rate are going to do? They have a lot less money to play with. And so they had a bigger dog in this fight because they were a smaller company and they were getting smaller premiums. So while I had to sue the kid, that was in my benefit because the insurance company is not a third party to the case, or is
right,
a third party to the case, isn't a party of the case.
right.
So they got to sit there and watch, but also, he had to, hopefully, when he looks at, how he can make improvements and changes in his life, it doesn't include that insurance company any longer.
Yeah.